Welcome to Tween Tuesday. I'm Miss Cindy from the South Brunswick Public Library. Today's craft is actually one that I have done in the library before on other Halloweens past, but if you weren't old enough to come, or you didn't come, or you just want to remember how to do it again, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make DIY wizard wands. I know it sounds kind of like iffy, but I promise it'll be super easy. It's a chance to be really creative and really make your wand your own. So without further ado, let's get to it. Alright guys, let's start on our wizard wand. First, let me show you what you're going to need. You're going to need paint. I'm using a dark reddish brown. A hot glue gun. Be extremely careful with this. It's called a hot glue gun for a reason. That you can burn yourself, and I have burned myself. So definitely don't try to do this alone or without any supervision. This isn't strictly mandatory, but it will help a lot. And a chopstick. Now, I got this chopstick just because it came with my Chinese food that I ordered at some point. But if you don't have any, if you didn't save any, if you don't order Chinese food, whatever, you can also get these at any East Asian supermarket or even just a small market. Like, they'll usually sell them with like spoons and paper plates, stuff like that. But if you don't have one of these, if you don't have an East Asian market, whatever, you can even use like a stick from outside. You can use a skewer, as long as it is roughly wand sized, which is about 8 to 10 inches or so, and thick enough, then you're good to go. Like I said, you can use a stick from outside. Those are completely free. Now, the stuff that I have here is extra stuff that I'm using for texture. Now, I say for texture because you're not going to be able to see the color. You're not going to be able to see what it is. But what it is going to add a little bit of depth and a little bit of texture to the wand. And you'll see what I mean. So what I'm going to be using is rubber bands, string, and some water beads. You guys might know this as Orbeez. You don't have to use this. You don't have to use any of these. You can use pony beads, any kind of beads that you have at home, and you can use none of it entirely either. It really does not matter. That is just part of making the wand design your very own. So I will explain to you how it all works and how to put it all together. First thing we're going to do is get our glue gun ready. Now, have an idea for the design that you want while this is heating up. It's still warm. I would suggest not touching it and just kind of putting your hand near it, and you can feel if there's any warmth coming off of it. Now, I'm going to be using this string to add a little bit of texture. And what's going to happen is we're going to add our texture objects, our beads, rubber bands, wire, whatever you want. And then we're going to paint over it. So you're not going to be able to see what it is exactly. It's all going to look like part of the wand, almost like it was carved. And the hot glue is really going to help with that. Now, like I said, you don't need the hot glue if you have just like a strong glue and you want to, let's say, glue this and, make a design, whatever, and then decide that you want to paint over that, that's fine. As long as the glue is strong enough, then you should be good. The reason that hot glue is usually used is because once it cools a little bit and becomes a little bit more malleable. Malleable means that you can sculpt it, kind of like clay. But if you have like clay or silly putty or anything, you can even use that to sculpt around it and then paint. So I got my string. I'm going to put just like a dot of hot glue. You don't need a lot, just a goop. And I'm not going to touch the hot glue because it's hot, but I am going to put it near and then just push so it's touching it. Now I'm going to wrap a string around. Now, because I want the string to stay, I'm going to add glue at different intervals. So just like another dot here. Just do that. The other kind of positive to hot glue is that it dries really quickly. Once it cools, that is it. It is done. And then you can feel it, and it feels kind of like rubber or like a plastic. If you do want to get a glue gun, like I said, make sure you're using parental supervision because it is very hot and very easy to burn yourself. You can probably get it for like, this small one I got for like $3 at a craft store. They're not super expensive. You just need to make sure to get the sticks that go with it. But it's a pretty handy thing to kind of have around if you're a crafty person. But again, you should also see my fingers because I have burned them a bunch of times. So I'm over here just trying to like not touch it too much. You can blow on it though. And once it's cooled a little, then you can touch it a little bit because you can kind of mold it while it's warm. So these extra strands, I'm just going to cut off. So this is kind of my basic wand design. The only kind of pain in the butt about the small ones is that they sometimes take a long time to heat up. So you have to be very patient. I think I'm going to use rubber bands here, down here. Just have to wrap this a bunch of times. Yeah, because I wanted to have knobs, or at least a knob, I think, here. And again, this is going to get covered with a little bit of hot glue and then some paint, so you're not going to be able to necessarily tell what it is. So that's knob 1. I think if I push it up, I can do 2. So again, rubber band, wrap it around a million times. Now I'm just showing you mine because I just want you to see roughly the process of how it's made, but you don't have to make yours like this. You can make yours however you want. If you have like a wizard wand already in mind, like you have a favorite character and they have a wand and you want to emulate theirs, you can do that. If you want to change it up based on the materials you have, you can do that too. Like I always say, art is what you want it to be. Alright, I'm going to cut off these top bits here. Now, here's the part where you're going to need a lot of hot glue. So, I've got my water beads here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover as much as I can here with my glue and dip it into the beads. Now what I'm going to do is kind of shape. I'm not touching the glue, I'm only touching the beads. And some of the beads might fall off, and that's fine. I want the beads that aren't touching the glue to come off because I'm going to add more glue later and I need to know where to go. You see? It's got a little kind of bumpy top. Always keep the wand spinning, by the way, when you're doing this, because it is really, really easy for it to drip down and make a mistake. Do that and dip it in. Now, shape. I'm doing this over a plate because I know I'm going to drop a lot. And these water beads are not something that I want to lose and have roll around everywhere because they definitely will. So I usually do my work over like a bowl or a plate or something like that because it's a lot easier to clean up later. All right. This seems to be good. I can still feel that it's warm. So I'm going to just kind of rustle a little bit. All right, I see I missed a little spot. So I just go in there and again, just push my beads in. All right, now we're just gonna let this cool for about a minute or so. Like I said, the good thing about hot glue is that it dries really quickly. Okay, so this is now cool. And all these little extra pieces are falling off. Okay, now I'm going to use my glue to add a little bit of texture also around the base of the wand. So I'm just going to, there we go. So I'm just going to mostly follow the line that I made with my string. It's not going to have to be perfect, and don't worry, it won't be. I'm dropping some beads a little bit, so like I said, always work over like a bowl or something that you can easily clean up. Paper towels. And I'm going to just kind of seal up these little knobs. Okay. You'll see that it's mostly started to cool, and the way that you can tell if hot glue is wet or dry or hardened or soft is that it starts getting opaque. Opaque means the opposite of transparent. You can't see through it as well. So see how this is getting kind of white, whereas this is still very clear. This is still very hot glue, but this is cooling a little bit. Now once it's white, it's a little bit easier to touch. So you can probably take a quick, poke just to see if it's done, but it's not necessarily 100% safe, so be very, very careful when you do this. So what I'm just doing is taking off some of the peels and pushing it down so it's kind of in a shape that I want. Okay, so this one has started to cool a little bit. So what I'm doing here is just smoothing. So I'm just running my finger around so that it gets into the shape that I want, which is a little rounder, a little more even. All right, same with this one. Gonna just run my finger around. I'm gonna dip it in a little bit of water first to just kind of mold. I dipped it in the water so that my finger wouldn't stick as much. There you go. So this one's a little more round shaped, and this one's more like a little donut. Okay, so this is basically the base for my wand. I'm gonna just tap it just to make sure there's no more loose beads. Okay, now that this is done, we get to our painting. So I'm gonna unplug my glue gun. Always make sure that it is not plugged in while you are not paying attention to it. If you are done using it, unplug it right away. It's going to take some time to cool, and you don't want to leave this lying around hot. It's going to burn you, it's going to burn somebody in your house, or melt through something that you may have put it on. So always be very careful and just let it cool. All right, so I'm going to put the water beads back. Okay. Now it's time to grab my paintbrush and go to town. You can use whatever color, whatever shade you want. I'm using a dark, slightly reddish brown. Okay, I'm going to let this dry just right here until this part is dry, and then once this part is dry, I can paint this top part. Okay, so my wand has had about an hour of drying time now, and this is what it looks like. It's a pretty good size, I would say, for a wand, and I made sure to use the end that tapers of the chopstick as the end of the wand instead of the beginning, so it would end in a little bit more of a point. So you see, once it's all painted, it's hard to tell that it was, you know, like hot glue and rubber bands and like Orbeez and stuff like that. It all really comes together and looks like it's just one thing, one wand. So that is it for me. I hope you guys learned something cool today. I hope you guys do something creative with it. And I will see you guys next time on Tween Tuesday. Bye.